7, which does not have a purport. So let's do text 6. Tana kirtaya bhadram te kirtanyo dara karmanaha rasagya konu tripyeta hari lamritam piban. Tana kirtaya bhadram te kirtanyo dara karmanaha rasagya konu tripyeta hari lamritam piban. Tana kirtaya bhadram te kirtanyo dara karmanaha rasagya konu tripyeta hari lamritam piban. Everyone can chant, please.
Tana kirtaya bhadram te kirta yodara karmanaha rasagya nutripyeta hari lilamritam piban.
Tana kirtaya bhadram te kirtanodhyara karmana rasajñako no tripyeta harileelamritam pibam.
Hare Krishna. Tanaha kirtaya patram te kirtanyodara karmanaha rasgya kono tripye harileelamritam pibam. Hare Krishna.
Anyone else? Okay, word for word translation. Ta, those talks. Na, to us. Kirtaya, narrate. Bhadram te, may all good come unto you. Kirtanya, should be chanted. Udara, liberal. Karmana, activities. Rasagya, a devotee who can appreciate mellow tastes. Ka, who. Nu, indeed. Tripyeta, would feel satisfied. Hari lila amritam, the nectar of the pastimes of the Lord. Piban, drinking. Translation. O Suta Goswami, all good fortune to you. Please narrate the activities of the Lord, which are all magnanimous and worth glorifying. What sort of devotee can be satiated by hearing the nectarian pastimes of the Lord? Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. The narration of the pastimes of the Lord, which are always enacted on the transcendental platform, should be received with all respect by devotees. Those who are actually on the transcendental platform are never satiated by hearing the continuous narration of the pastimes of the Lord. For example, if any self-realized soul reads from Bhagavad Gita, he will never feel satiated. The narrations of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam may be read thousands and thousands of times, and still without fail, new aspects of the subject matter will be relished by the devotee. And I'll just do by myself text 7. Evam ugra shrava prishta rishibirnai mishayanai Bhagavatyorpitadyatmas tan aha shruyatam iti. Translation. On being asked to speak by the great sages of Naimisharanya, The son of Romaharshana, Sutta Goswami, whose mind was absorbed in the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, said, "Please hear what I shall now speak." Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine. O Sutta Goswami, all good fortune to you. Please narrate the activities of the Lord, which are all magnanimous and worth glorifying. What sort of devotee can be satiated by hearing the nectarian pastimes of the Lord? On being asked to speak by the great sages of Naimisharanya, the son of Romaharshana, Sutta Goswami, whose mind was absorbed in the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, said, "Please hear what I shall now speak." So this is very nice, another sort of transitional moment in the dealings between Maitreya and Vidura. And this is a pattern, excuse me. This is a pattern we see throughout the Bhagavatam, and we've already seen it several times in this one conversation, this huge conversation which covers cantos between Vidura and Maitreya, that there'll be some amazing description, a description of the Lord's pastimes, or some description of creation, or some description of some important philosophical point. And then there'll be a break. And in that break, there'll be some glorification of the importance and the amazing quality of the process of hearing and chanting and how to do it, and also glorification of the speakers. And this happens throughout the whole Bhagavatam, practically in practically every pastime. After the pastime or after the philosophical discussion, it'll talk about how important hearing and chanting is and how glorious the speakers are. So in this case, Sutta Goswami is being praised. Bhadram Te, all the sages at Naimisharanya, all glories to you, all blessings to you, all auspiciousness on you. And Sutta Goswami, what a amazing sage, and what an important, amazing devotee and amazing speaker of Bhagavatam. He's named Sutta Goswami. Sutta is his family name, and Sutta is also a reference to his lineage, that he's in a mixed by caste system, by Varnashram. He's a mixed caste person. That's a Sutta. Sutta means, if I'm remembering correctly, if a Kshatriya impregnates a Brahmana woman, then that child is called a Sutta. And as far as caste consciousness go, these persons are usually chariot drivers or keepers of horses, keepers of cows, like that. So by a very strict caste conscious idea amongst Smarta Brahmins, and even in the Manu Samhita, these persons are not very much appreciated, the mixed caste. But Sutta Goswami is so amazing, so qualified. And there are other suttas, the idea of this sutta, the mixed caste person. Actually, there's Radheya, Karna, who was not a mixed caste person, but to the external world, because he was raised by, he's called Radheya because his adopted mother was Radha, not Radharani from Vrindavan, but someone else with that name. So he was known as Radheya, and he was generally considered to be a sutta, mixed caste person. That's why, like at the Swayamvara, Draupadi didn't allow him to compete. And Arjuna used to um, regularly insult Karna and say, what was Sutta Putra? He would address him as Sutta Putra, always reminding him of his so-called low birth or mixed birth. Now, aside from the fact that he actually wasn't of mixed birth, he was actually the son of a demigod and glorious. Uh, but still, that was the mentality, insulting mixed caste, low caste. But still, despite that, Sutta Goswami is accepted as the most amazing sage. Uh, in the verse today, Prabhupada says in the translation, he's the son of Roma Harshana, although that was not in the Sanskrit, it was not mentioned him as the son of Roma Harshana, but Prabhupada brought it up because that even more from a material point of view, even further complicates his lineage. So we all know, or we probably all know that history that Lord Balaram, before the Battle of Kurukshetra started, he decided to go on pilgrimage. He thought, I don't want to be involved. Whatever he was thinking, I don't want to be involved. I love the Pandavas, but Duryodhana is also my beloved disciple, who I trained. So I don't want to be there and be torn apart by this fratricidal war. So he went on pilgrimage. And in the pilgrimage, he came to that very place, Naimisharanya. And this very sacrifice, presumably the same sacrifice at which Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken. But at that time, uh, Sutta Goswami was not the main speaker. It was his father, Romaharshana Sutta. And Romaharshana was also a very, very great and important and powerful sage and a disciple of Vyasadeva, in fact. And he was also of this mixed caste, but still, the sages accepted him as a Brahmana, as a sage, of as worthy of sitting on the Vyasasan and instructing them. So despite the caste distinction, that was overlooked. But then we know the story, Lord Balaram came and Romaharshana Sutta, because he was sitting on the Vyasasan, generally speaking, when one is on the Vyasasan, uh, he's not supposed to get off the Vyasasan and offer respects to someone else. The courtesy, the etiquette is that everyone offer respects to him. But when the Supreme Personality of Godhead comes, it's a little different. And because he didn't offer respects to Balaram, Lord Balaram killed him by touching him with a kusha grass, and he lost his life. And although it was justified, the sages said it's justified, what you did is fine. He disrespected the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But at the same time, we offered the Vyasasan to Maharshan. We blessed him with a long life and with all just like today, the verses Bhadram Te, all auspiciousness to you. So the sages said, we offered that auspiciousness and safety and security and respect to Maharshan Sutta. And you destroyed that. So how can we resolve this? So they said, okay, you've killed a Brahmana. And they instructed Lord Balaram, you kill this demon for us, you go on pilgrimage. And Lord Balaram said, okay, I'll do that in return for killing a Brahmana. But as far as your blessings on Romaharshana Sutta, you install his son, Sutta Goswami, on the Vyasasan, because the son is the representative of the father. And if you do that, then your blessings will still be made true or enacted by them falling on the son, Sutta Goswami, instead of the father, Romaharshan. So in that way, Sutta Goswami was made the main speaker of the Bhagavatam. And one might almost speculate that this whole pastime was enacted in order to put Sutta Goswami on the Vyasasan to speak the Bhagavatam, because his position there is so important. Romaharshan, actually, the name Romaharshan means that he was actually a great devotee and a disciple of Vyasadeva. Romaharshan means that on hearing the pastimes of the Lord, his Romaharshan literally means his hair would stand up in ecstasy. And also because he was such a powerful speaker, when he spoke Krishna Katha, the audience, their hairs would stand up in ecstasy. So he's so qualified in so many ways, but still, Lord Balaram, because he disrespected the Lord, he was removed. Prabhupada says in describing that in Krishna book that although the Brahmanas accepted him fully as a Brahmana and they didn't consider his Sutta lineage, but when he disrespected Lord Balaram, then everyone recalled, oh yes, he came from a low background or mixed background. But anyway, Sutta Goswami, the impeccable devotee, was installed as the speaker of Bhagavatam. And therefore we have Bhagavatam as we have it today because of that. So many other of these devotees who were so-called suttas or so-called mixed caste. Sanjaya was also a sutta. His father, Gaval Gana, was the charioteer for Dhritarashtra, and the son Sanjaya, also of mixed caste, was the most confidential advisor and preacher and speaker. And through him, actually, through being a disciple of Vyasadeva, he had such great knowledge and such great power that he could envision all the activities of Mahabharata and all the activities of the Battle of Kurukshetra within his heart. Prabhupada said, like television, like a television transmission in his heart. So he was mixed caste, but how brilliant, how important, and how respected was he? And there are so many other cases. Vidura, who's speaking now, just like Arjuna would sometimes insult Karna. So Duryodhana also insulted Vidura, who was of mixed birth, even though his father was Vyasadeva himself. But because Duryodhana was envious, he didn't count that. He thought, oh, your mother is a maidservant. And he criticized him, you Dasi Putra, you son of a maidservant, what are you doing here? You're a rascal, this, that, and drove him out. And again, just like that, the pastime was enacted so that Sutta Goswami could sit on the Vyasasan, so the pastime with Vidura was enacted so that these amazing conversations between Vidura and Maitreya could take place, which instruct us over multiple cantos of the Bhagavatam, multiple books of the Bhagavatam. So such qualified persons, although materially mixed caste. In fact, Vyasadeva himself, right? His father was a Brahmana, and his mother was a Satyavati, was that her name? The fisherman's daughter. So Vyasadeva himself was mixed caste, and so many of his disciples are mixed caste. It's almost like, again, speculating, I can't see Vyasadev's mind, but one could surmise that Vyasadeva is taking pleasure in subverting these material caste conscious ideas of mixed caste, pure caste, high caste, low caste. He's subverting that at so many times with so many of his disciples in his own existence as the compiler of the Vedas and the Vedanta. So, and this is also why instituting Varnashram is difficult, because there is this envy. Even Arjuna and the Pandavas, they expressed this hatred of Karna, accusing him of being mixed caste. And when they found out he was actually their brother, then, oh, they cursed themselves for their limited vision of seeing Karna like that. But anyway, this is why Varnashram is hard, because these traces of envy are there. The Brahmanas is thinking, oh, I'm big Brahmana, you're lesser caste than me, or higher caste, or lower caste, or this or that. Doing it without envy is very difficult. And that's why it degraded into caste system. But anyway, Sutta Goswami is glorified, this amazing speaker of the Bhagavatam. He's known, in this verse, his name is given as Ugra Shrava, which is also a significant name. Ugra, we know this word Ugra, just like there's Ugra karma, means like awful karma, bad karma, just like awful karma, horrendous karma. So Ugra means that, but it also means like very awe-inspiringly powerful. Something extremely powerful is also Ugra. Just like we talk of Ugra Nrsimha, right? Not because he's horrible, but because he's so awesomely powerful that it just, blows everyone's mind how powerful he is. So that's Ugra, and Shrava is from Shravanam, hearing. So that means that Sutta Goswami is the most awesome hearer of Bhagavatam. And when he spoke it, he was the most awesome, powerful Ugra Shrava speaker of Bhagavatam, that everyone was blown away by hearing his powerful speaking. Just like we talk about, Prabhupada talked about Bhaktisiddhanta being a lion guru, right? So this is also Ugra Shava, that Sutta Goswami is a lion guru, that he's roaring, and his roaring is coming out as Srimad Bhagavatam and blowing everyone away and being the basis of, worship of Krishna all over this world, all over the universe, from this speaking of Sutta Goswami. So how qualified is he? How qualified is he? Sutta Goswami is described beginning very early in the Bhagavatam. So in text 1 of the Bhagavatam, Janmadyasya Yatonvayaditratas Charteshva Bigyaswart, all the subject matter of Srimad Bhagavatam is given in text 1. That Krishna is the source of everything, he knows everything, he's present everywhere, he puts everyone into illusion, he's the creator of everything. All of this is there, and that's the topic, that's the supreme absolute truth. And the purpose of Bhagavatam is Satyam Param Dhimahi, is to provide this meditation upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then in text two is describing who is the compiler of Srimad Bhagavatam. Yes. Dharma Projita Kai. It's describing also the quality of Srimad Bhagavatam and the compiler. Dharma Projita Kaitavotra Paramo Nirmatsaranam Satam. It's completely pure. It kicks out all cheating, pseudo-religion, and it's meant for the highest Paramahamsa persons. Vedyam Vastam Atra Vastu Shravanam Tapa Trayon Mulam. It gives the most perfect Vedic knowledge, the essence of all knowledge. It eliminates all the sufferings of the threefold miseries in this material world. And Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite. It's been compiled by Mahamuni Vedavyas, this mixed caste sage Vedavyas, who is also an empowered incarnation of Krishna himself. Kimva Parar Ishwara. What other literature is needed besides this Srimad Bhagavatam? It's the most perfect thing. So that's the second verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. First is the subject matter of Srimad Bhagavatam. Then who compiled it? Vedavyas. And then text 3, who spoke it? Who first spoke it? And another famous verse. Nigama kalpa taror galitam palam. Sukhamukad amrita drava samyutam. Pibata bhagavatam rasamalayam muhur aho. Rasika bhuvi bhavuka. That this Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken by Shukadev Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit. This is the initial framing of the story of Srimad Bhagavatam. And we know Parikshit was cursed. He went down to the bank of the river to wait for his death. He wanted to hear the best thing, and Shukadev came and spoke Bhagavatam to him. Nigama Kalpator, which is the ripened fruit of the tree of Vedic knowledge. Sukha Mukha Amrita Java Samyutam. It was spoken by Shukadev Goswami. And because it was spoken by Shukadev Goswami, it became even sweeter and even more relishable. And the analogy, the poetic analogy, is that Shukadev Goswami is Shuka, and Shuka also means a parrot. And the idea is that when a parrot pierces a fruit with its beak, then that fruit becomes even more ripe and even more sweet. Pibata Bhagavatam Rasam Alayam. Pibata, drinking. Same word as in today's shloka, also piba, to drink. So you drink this nectar of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is even sweeter and juicier than originally because of coming from the mouth of Shukadev Goswami. Mahur aho rasika bhuvi bhavuka. Those who are rasika devotees, just like again in today's verse, the rasa gya, those who know rasa, who understand rasa can relish this. So in this verse also from the third verse of the Bhagavatam, that those who are Rasika, Bhuvi, Bhavika, those on this earth who are Rasika, who understand mellows and the relationship with Krishna, and Bhavuka, those who have Bhava, those who have love and affection and emotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they take such pleasure in drinking this nectar of Srimad Bhagavatam, uh, ripened and made even sweeter, even juicier, due to emanating from the mouth of Srila Shukadev Goswami. And then, what's next? Uh, it describes coming back again to Naimisharanya. And the sages, headed by Shonako, came there to perform a big sacrifice for the satisfaction of the lords and the devotees. And who did they appoint? We know from the past on with Balaram. Who did they appoint as the person to sit on the Vyasasan? The great Ugra Shrava Sutta Goswami, because he had heard that Bhagavatam from Shukadev at the time of its speaking, and because he was so individually qualified himself, uh, and installed through that pastime of Balaram killing his father, he was installed as the speaker. And therefore, in the fifth text of the Bhagavatam, Ta ekada tumunaya pratarhuta hutagnayo. One day, ekada means one day, like once upon a time. Uh, Actually, it almost literally means once upon a time. Uh, One time, the sages were there, huta hutagna, they were doing their sacrifice, lighting the sacrificial fire and all. Sat kritam sutamasinam. Asinam, like asan. So they seated who? Sat Kritam Sutam, the most auspicious. They all glorified and praised Suta Goswami to sit on the Vyasasan, Prapachor Idam Adarak, Prapacham. And they inquired from him. And these are the questions of the sages, the seven questions of the sages, which form the basis of the whole presentation of Srimad Bhagavatam from those questions. So in that way, Sutta Goswami was installed as this amazing speaker who's being praised today. Let's see now. So those devotees, just like in today's verse, the word piba, drinking, is used. Kanu piba. No, kanu, now I can't remember the verse. Let me just give me a moment here. I'm going to call that verse back up. Yes, in text 6. Konu tripieta, hari lilamritam piban. This word piban, which we've heard twice today in two different verses, means to drink. So, normally we think, oh, you hear the vibrations go in the ear. But very often this description is there that you're drinking because it's nectar. The poetic analogy is that you're drinking it, just like you're drinking nectar, co-nutripeta. And the nectar of the Lord's pastimes are so amazing that co-nutripeta, no, rasagya co-nutripeta, that a devotee who actually understands devotional service and his relationship with Krishna, co-nutripeta, how could he ever be satisfied? That, oh, I read Bhagavatam once. Oh, I read Bhagavatam twice. I'm satisfied. I don't need to read it anymore. No, you read it and you want to read it again and read it again and read it again. Hari lilamritam piban, because you're drinking this nectar. And it's so nectar that you never stop. Your thirst for it actually increases more and more and more. What's the I can't remember that verse now about Trishna. What's the verse? Asat Trishna. How does that verse start? Can someone refresh my memory? Anyone remember it? No. Anyway, that
Atha Sri Krishna Namadi, you're saying?
hmm?
Atha Sri Krishna Namadi, that one or
No,
no?
no, it has the word Trishna at the beginning.
Ah, okay.
Oh, how embarrassing. Anyway, in any case, there's many verses like that that the Trishna or thirst means can mean the thirst for material life, and that sort of thirst is condemned, the thirst for material enjoyment. Even now, I learned that this is a slang now. When someone's very lusty, they say they're thirsty, right? This is a modern uh, lingo amongst young people. But this thirst for hearing about Krishna, Piban, that Hari Lilamritam Piban, that you're drinking the nectar of Krishna Katha and you're never satisfied. This kind of thirst is praised. So you don't just hear it, you drink it. Another nice instance of that when Krishna and Balaram and the residents of Dwarka visited Kurukshetra and met with the residents of Vrindavan there. They were having some talks, and the devotees spoke, or Lord Krishna's relatives spoke, said, "O Master, how can misfortune arise for those who have even once freely drunk the nectar coming from your lotus feet?" So that may seem odd. Nectar coming from lotus feet and you're drinking it. Of course, there's drinking the water that's washed the lotus feet of great souls. So what does this mean? So it continues, this intoxicating liquor pours into the drinking cups of their ears, having flowed from the minds of great devotees through their mouths. It destroys the embodied soul's forgetfulness of the creator of their bodily existence. So Krishna has his amazing, wonderful qualities and holy name and pastimes. Uh, and that nectar coming from his lotus feet is processed through the minds of the great devotees who then speak about it. And that nectar that's pouring from their mouths is the ears are like cups. I think it's also said that the cows in Vrindavan, when Krishna would blow his flute, that their ears would perk up and be like cups for capturing the nectar of Krishna's flute sound. So, drinking this nectar of Krishna and his pastimes and his qualities, processed through the mouths of the great devotees, like Vyasadeva, like Shukadev Goswami, like Sutta Goswami, are processing that and giving it to us. And like Shukadev, making it even sweeter into a nectar that we could drink. Um, and that takes a qualification. Not any devotee can do that, these great qualified devotees. And we also have to become qualified like that. So going back to the first canto again, that's also described going on in text 6. The sages said, respected Sutta Goswami, you are completely free from all vice. You are well versed in all the scriptures, famous for religious life, and in the Puranas and histories as well, for you have gone through them under proper guidance and have also explained them. So this is some qualifications, right? You are completely free from all vice. What's the anaga? You have no more sin. There's no contamination in you. Anaga. Just like aga means sin or contamination, just like agasura. So anaga means one who has no vice, no sin, no hypocrisy. And in the purport there, Prabhupada comments, a Goswami or the bona fide representative of Sri Vyasadeva must be free from all kinds of vices. And he mentions the four regulative principles. Then he continues, a Goswami must be free from all these vices before he can dare sit on the Vyasasan. No one should be allowed to sit on the Vyasasan who is not spotless in character and who is not freed from the above-mentioned vices. And then that verse also goes on, you are well versed in the scriptures. So he knows the Shastra and he knows the conclusion of Shastra. So he's pure on a personal level, and he also has the transcendental knowledge. Again, from the purport, Prabhupada goes on. He not only should be free from all such vices, but must also be well versed in all revealed scriptures or in the Vedas. And he mentions the Puranas, Mahabharata, Ramayana, and he says the Acharya or Goswami must be well acquainted with all of these. And he even says to hear and explain them is more important than reading them. So that means we have to hear the Shastra, not just through independent study, but through the explanations of these great acharyas whose character is spotless and whose knowledge is perfect. What else? Qualification. And the other thing, next verse. Being the eldest learned Vedantist, O Suta Goswami, you are acquainted with the knowledge of Vyasadeva, who is the incarnation of Godhead, and you also know other sages who are fully versed in all kinds of physical and metaphysical knowledge. So that means that Suta Goswami is qualified because he's carrying the message of Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva is the compiler of the Vedas, so he knows the purpose of the Vedas. There's the story. We've all heard the story so many times. Let me, Prabhupada tells about the famous book in India, Shah Jahan. Very famous in India. Shah Jahan, which is the story of Aurangzeb and how he killed his brother and arrested his father and ruled the kingdom and all this, Shah Jahan. So the author of that, whose name is escaping me now, a friend of his once approached him and said, this famous book of yours, you call it Shah Jahan. Shah Jahan was the father of Aurangzeb. And he was the one who he fell in love, and then his wife died, and he made the Taj Mahal and all that. That's Shah Jahan. So the friend said to the author and said, I think you've made a mistake. You're naming this book Shah Jahan, but all the activities in the book are the activities of Aurangzeb. So you've named the book incorrectly. And the author explained to him, no, you don't understand. Shah Jahan, he's just sitting in jail throughout the whole book. But every act committed by Aurangzeb, although Shah Jahan is in jail, every act performed by him is beating on Shah Jahan's heart and paining his heart. So even though he's seemingly not doing anything, he's the main character of the book and the center of the book and the title of the book. And Prabhupada explained this means that the author knows the purpose of his own book better than anyone else. So the Mayavadis who twist Vedanta, or the materialists who twist Vedanta, or the 99.999% of people who ignore entirely Vedanta are not understanding. Vedanta is given by Vyasadeva. And because Suta Goswami is praised here by the sages that you know Vyasadeva's purpose, he's able to give the actual understanding of Vedanta in Srimad Bhagavatam. And the devotees want to drink that nectar. Pibita Bhagavatam Rasamalayam. They're drinking this nectar, tasting this nectar and thirsting for this nectar. And when a person does that, they become empowered like Suta Goswami, like Shukadeva Goswami. And they can preach. This is why Prabhupada's preaching was so amazing and so powerful and so effective. Let's see the time. Okay. Because he was also relishing this nectar of Srimad Bhagavatam, relishing hearing it from the proper source. We also all know the story from Prabhupada's history that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had arranged Vrajamandal Parikrama, and Prabhupada attended part of it. He had a business and work, so he couldn't attend the whole thing, but he spent some days with the Parikrama. And one day, at the end of the day, they made an announcement and they said, okay, we're arranging a trip tonight for all the devotees to go see the Sheshashayi temple, which is an important temple in Vrajamandal with Krishna there. I think he's in a form like Vishnu laying down. So, and those who, and also at the same time, if you don't go on the Sheshashayi visit, Guru Maharaj Bhaktisiddhanta will stay here and he'll be speaking some class. So, of course, everyone wanted to go see the temple because everyone goes to Vrindavan. They like to visit the temples. But Srila Prabhupada thought, he said, this Sheshashai, what's this Sheshashai? I could see anytime. But to hear my Guru Maharaj speak, to drink the nectar coming from the mouth of my Guru Maharaj, that I want to do. And because of that, when he was recommended for initiation sometime later, Bhaktisiddhanta said, yes, I have marked him. He likes to hear. So that likes to hear means he likes to drink the nectar of Srimad Bhagavatam from the lips of Shukadev, from the lips of Sutta Goswami, and from the lips of his Guru Maharaj Bhaktisiddhanta. So drinking this nectar, this is the important thing for a devotee. One final nice verse, which I've been studying lately in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Ye lila amrita vine kaya yadi anapane. I have it attacked to my wall, so I'm reading it off the wall because I've actually learned this verse and forgotten it at least like 2 or 3 times over the years. So now I'm learning it again. Ye lila amrita vine kaya yadi anapane tabe bhaktera durbal jivan. So ye lila amrita vine, lila amrita, just like we also heard today, that Hari lila amrita, right? So ye lila amrita vine, if you don't hear the nectar of the pastimes of the Lord, it's just like what? Kaya yadi anapane. The example is, the analogy is given that just like a person becomes strong by eating healthy food. If you eat sufficient food and healthy food and well-prepared food, then you'll become healthy. You'll become strong. But ye lila amrita vine, if you don't have this diet of always being absorbed in the pastimes of the Lord, then tabe bhaktara durbal jivan. Durbal, this is nice. The Sanskrit's, it's actually simple. That dur means bad, and bala means strength, like Balaram. Balaram, the name Balaram means one who takes pleasure in exhibiting his great strength. So durbala means bad strength or weakness. And Jivan means your life energy. So if you don't hear the pastimes of Krishna, if you don't drink the nectar or eat the food of Krishna's pastimes of Krishna Katha, then Bhaktera Durbal Jivan, then the devotee, you'll become weak in spiritual life. But if you do, Yare Eka Bindu Pani, if you take even Eka Bindu, you drink one drop of that nectar of Krishna Katha, Yare Eka Bindu Pani, Utpalita Tanumane. Utpulita, another beautiful word. We know pool. In Hindi also, pool means flower, right? And in Sanskrit, pool means flower. So Utpulita means blooming or blossoming like a flower. So if you take even a drop, drink even a drop of this nectar of Krishna Katha, Yare Eka Bindu Pane, Utpalita Tanumane, then your tanu, your body, and mani, and your mind blossom, bloom, just like an expanding lotus in the sun, blooms in this ecstasy of Krishna consciousness. And what's the result? Hase, gaye, karya nartan. And then the result is hase, you'll laugh, gaye, you'll sing, and karya nartan, and you'll dance in ecstasy. So when there's a qualified speaker, like Sutta Goswami to the sages at Naimisharana, or like Srila Prabhupada giving us his books, that's the qualified speaker. And if we become qualified hearer, so that we're not just hearing, we have this expression, right, in one ear and out the other. that doesn't profit very much. But if we drink the nectar, that's the difference. Hearing, you could have one in one ear and out the other, but when you drink something, you're really uh, internalizing it and digesting it. And when it's digested, the thing that you digest becomes a part of your body, becomes a part of your very being. That's why this concept of drinking the nectar of Krishna Kata is so sweet and so relevant, that you're really internalizing it and making it the very substance of yourself. And when that happens, then you'll experience the ecstasy of Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada actually, in the purport to that verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Ye Lila Amrita Vine, Kaya Yadi Anapane, Tad Bhaktera Dorabal Jivan, Yare Eka Bindu Pane, Utpalita Tanumane, Hasegaye Karya Nartan. And in the purport, he says, all the devotees connected with the Krishna consciousness movement must read all the books that have been translated, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and others. Otherwise, after some time, they will simply eat, sleep, and fall down from their position. Thus, they will miss the opportunity to attain an eternal, blissful life of transcendental pleasure. So Prabhupada gave his life. He did so much. He traveled, he preached, he built temples, but he gave us these books for us to read. And if we don't read them, then we won't be able to advance nicely in Krishna consciousness. And if we do read them and reread them and discuss them and churn them, Prabhupada said we should study his books threadbare. Or the example is often given of, like, if you have a very packed, compressed ball of cotton and then you fluff it out and you expand it. So a little speck of cotton like that can be fluffed out into a whole big thing. So, I mean, that's what the morning class is, right? You read one verse, which takes 30 seconds to read, plus an extra minute or two if there's a long enough purport. And you struggle. I struggle. We all struggle sometimes to say something, reasonable or intelligent, or what to speak of rasagya, to say something about it. And that's the expansion, and that's the drinking and sharing that's going on. And if we don't do that, then, like Prabhupada said, we'll eat, sleep, and fall down and miss the chance at eternal blissful life. And just like also Prabhupada said in today's purport, you don't just read it once and done. You read it and you reread it. You read Bhagavad Gita once, you read it again and you get more light. You read it again and you get more light. And it never ends. And Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita and Nectar of Devotion and all of these books, these are all Lilamrita, Hari Lilamrita, the nectar of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And each of these books, they have not different messages, but different flavors and different ways of approaching the supreme absolute truth. I think I've told this before, how when I was a not even a new devotee, I was definitely still not a devotee, but I started approaching Krishna consciousness a little bit, and I became a life member. And I got some books, and I took those books and went away to school for one wasted year. And I had first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Nectar of Devotion, Bhagavad Gita, and one volume of Lilamrita. At that time, only the second volume, Planting the Seed, had been printed. And although it's volume 2, it was printed first. And at the time, as I was reading them, when I was supposed to be doing my studies, I was reading them, and each book, it was all Krishna consciousness and all about Krishna. But the Lilamrita was teaching me that here's a person who's actually concretely in this world living a life of Krishna consciousness. And Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada called it an introduction or an ABCs. You're learning so much philosophy and basic philosophy and understanding of Krishna consciousness. You're not this body. And then you're reading Srimad Bhagavatam, And you're hearing, like I said, Vyasadeva and Sukadev and Sutta and Parikshit Maharaj, and so many pastimes of the Lord, and so much deep explanation is there. And in the Nectar of Devotion, you're learning about rasa and so many sweet pastimes of the Lord, and the Lord's dealing with his devotees. So each of them are shining different lights on Krishna consciousness from different angles. And if we read all of these books, one after the other, always diving deeper and deeper and deeper, both reading on our own and in the morning class and in other get-togethers with devotees, then we could start drinking that nectar and tasting that nectar. And then instead of becoming weak from not having a proper diet, we become strong in Krishna consciousness from getting the nourishment we need. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for your kind attention. If there's any questions or comments, we can discuss now.
Thank you very much, Prabhu, for
Thank
a
you.
nice class. Like you said, the parrot touches the fruit, it becomes more sweeter. So
Yes,
this Bhagavatam, every day we listen, it is more sweeter and sweeter and sweeter.
yes,
So there is no tiresome or anything. The time passes or whatever it is, we don't look that. But half an hour, it is not enough.
right. That's just a taste. That's
Just,
that's
just
just to get us hooked.
that's just. And then Sutraputra, that Sukadeva Goswami, whoever he is, and now if a person gives birth in Sudra family or anywhere, but the knowledge he will have is unbelievable. And I don't think, Brahmanas also can't have that much knowledge.
Right. That's why a Vaishnava is better than a Brahmana.
Yeah. So that is really something to know, most of this. And then when we have this Bhagavatam, you feel like, that we are understood thoroughly. There is hase, gaye, nache, like you are saying, that ecstasy will be there,
Right.
definitely. Yes. So that is what, and one drop of water, like, lotus blooms, that little bit of Bhagavatam also, our hearts will bloom like anything.
Jai.
So I had that thing, and like Chaitanya Charitamrita, and then Bhagavatam, and then Bhagavad Gita, all these books, the knowledge is more and more. I don't think one lifetime is enough for that.
Wasn't there one incident when a devotee was talking about with Prabhupada about his translation work and all the books he's making, and the devotee said, "Oh, this is the work of a lifetime," and Prabhupada said, "Many lifetimes."
Many lifetimes. It's not enough.
Yeah. And actually, there's so many books. Prabhupada actually, he wanted to translate more. Of course, he wanted to finish the 10th canto. He wanted to do Valmiki's Ramayana. He wanted to do what else? He started at one time on the prayers of King Kulashekara and just did a few verses. One time he started a few verses of Narada Bhakti Sutra but didn't finish. So it's and his disciples to some extent are carrying that on now. But yeah, many lifetimes work and so valuable. Us and all these books, but especially the ones Prabhupada gave us have to be the center point of our study. These
Yeah.
other books are awesome and wonderful, and I read them and I study them. But Srila Prabhupada's books that he personally gave has to be the central point of our study. And like you said, we don't read them, if we don't study them, then we'll eat, sleep, and fall down.
No. So that's something, Prabhu. And how much time Prabhupada took to write these, and day and night. And
Yeah.
night also he wakes up
Rising
and then
very
he
early in
does.
the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So how
it's quite
much
amazing.
at that age, he did it all that. It's unbelievable. It's
uh,
really amazing, amazing. Thanks to Prabhupada and thanks to speakers like you will let us know what it is, what valuable it is.
Hare Krishna, thank you.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Anything else, question or comment or discussion?
Haribol Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Very nice class. And one, I would like to know there's a different speaker at the same time was reciting the Bhagavatam, and I know who originally recite the Bhagavatam, and also who are the different speaker who at the same time were reciting
I,
Bhagavatam.
I don't know so much of the history of it. There's some description of that in the Bhagavat Mahatmya, which I think is from the Padma Purana. There's one instance of the four Kumaras were also one of the early reciters of Srimad Bhagavatam in the heavenly planets and some other persons. So there were other speakers of Srimad Bhagavatam, but we value specifically the line of Vyasadeva, Shukadev, Suta Goswami, Parikshit,
Yeah.
because that's the Srimad Bhagavatam that we have here that's been given to us. But yes, there were other speakers and other great personalities who were also presenting it in other lines and in other ways. But I don't know so much about that. Do you have any further information about that you're
Um,
aware of?
where Maitreya Muni and Vidu Rakam, they were just
Oh,
asking whatever Sutta Goswami spoke and
all
whatever.
right, right. Well, that's the nature of how Vyasadeva presented Srimad Bhagavatam. This is what is called in literature a nested narration. Nested meaning that there's a discussion or a pastime or an incident, and then within that incident, there's another incident that Vyasadeva is speaking, and then within that, now Sutta and the sages are speaking. And then in Sutta and the sages speaking, he's saying, oh, there's this other person that Shukadev is speaking to Parikshit. So it's stories within stories within stories.
Yeah.
And then within that, we have Maitreya and Vidura. Within that, like in the seventh canto, we have Narada Muni and Yudhishthira speaking. And so many, we have, Lord Shiva speaking to his wife and Narada preaching to uh, the sons of Daksha. So there's stories within stories within stories within stories
Mm.
going on. But the whole thing, the totality is the Srimad Bhagavatam. And I've also heard it said that, what is it? There's supposed to be like 18,000 shlokas of Srimad Bhagavatam. Is that the number? I don't know if I'm remembering that correctly. But it's also said like in the heavenly planets, there are more verses, more things that we don't have here.
Wow.
So I don't know so much about that. But what we've been given is such a Yare Eka Bindu Pani, if we taste one drop of it, but the Bhagavatam itself is an ocean of this nectar that we can just drown ourselves in, this ocean of nectar. So yeah, it's big. It's a big deal and it's big and it's expansive. And we don't know how big and expansive it is, actually. But what we have is enough.
Yeah. This
It's
is,
it's
this
more
is
more
more than
depth.
enough.
It's more depth and more quantity and more quality than we can ever in many lifetimes fully assimilate.
That's
But if we just dive in and taste that nectar, it will have the effect on us. Anything
true.
else? Question or comment?
You said like roaring like lion. How he complained. That was very good, Ugra.
Yeah. And that's also, a figure of speech. It's not that, yeah, it's not a matter of volume,
No, no,
it's a
no.
matter of potency. But
Mm,
but yeah, that's there. That's Ugra Shava.
that's so
That he
much.
spoke, that he was able to speak, he was able to hear with great potency, with great power, and he was able to explain and have others hear with great potency, great power. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Nice class.
Thank you, Acharya Prabhu.
Hare
I
Krishna.
really,
Thank you.
I really appreciated your class. I wanted to ask that it's easy to see that, or at least it's seemingly easy to see that Srila Vyasadeva and as pointed out in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's so many as you mentioned, so many of these sutta category devotees that, according to the Varnashram system, may not be considered to maybe be
Right.
lesser, but yet they're the most exalted devotees. Is this to demonstrate that although Varnashram may be helpful, that it's secondary to self-realization? Do
Yeah.
you think that is
Well,
embedded there?
I have an opinion. I can't read Vyasadev's mind, and I don't know what he was trying to do, but I can't help suspecting that he's trying to make a point by doing that. That it's not random that so many of his followers and disciples are these persons. And because of and he himself is one of them also. Uh, so I can't help but suspect that he's trying to make a point, as you said. But I can't pretend to read Vyasadev's mind either. And whether he's consciously making that point or not, it's certainly a point that we can learn to not judge someone based on caste or mixed caste or family lineage or this or that. At least we could learn that lesson, whether or not Vyasadeva is explicitly or not explicitly, intentionally making that point. The point is still there, yes. Because after all, also in the Bhagavatam, there's also a huge glorification of Brahmanhood and Varnashram and the importance of that. So that's also not inconsequential. But and like I said, that's why it's kind of difficult instituting Varnashram and why Varnashram became degraded as a caste system is because both of those things have to be balanced. That it doesn't matter. What matters is how advanced you are. You may be this caste, that caste, it doesn't matter. Sudra kene noi, ye Krishna tattvavid se guru hoy. You may be whatever caste, but if you know the science of Krishna consciousness, and Srila Prabhupada also would preach about the importance of Varnashram at the same time. So when one is incapable of balancing those ideas, then you get the degraded caste system and envy between castes. Actually, Prabhupada said that the envy between castes was the start of Kali Yuga. Because we know the pastime of Parikshit Maharaj and the cursing by the boy Shringi. That's the envy between castes. And Prabhupada said that was the conspiracy of Kali, of the personality of Kali, to bring that about. And that's the cause of Kali Yuga. So that's why Varnashram can be tricky. But like I said, you have these two sides, and an intelligent person knows how to balance them. Prabhupada wanted to institute Varnashram, but he didn't reject all of us who are, so far outside of Varnashram that it's, absurd. And even there's one nice talk. I can't remember now if it's a conversation or a letter. And one devotee was talking about translating or studying Manu Samhita. And Prabhupada said, don't go to Manu Samhita. Just like this description of Sutta, of the mixed caste, this is all from Manu Samhita. And they subdivide, okay, if a Kshatriya father and a Brahmana mother and a Vaishya this mixed with a Brahmana this and a Sudra this mixed with that. And each of them has different names and different categories and all of that. So Prabhupada said, don't go to Manu Samhita. Because if you go to Manu Samhita, according to Manu Samhita, you're all Mlechas and Yavanas, and you have no entrance to Krishna consciousness, and your career is finished. So don't go to Manu Samhita. And at the same time, sometimes he would also praise Manu Samhita as a law book for mankind. So again, there's different ideas, and an intelligent person knows how to balance them, not becoming a smarta or not becoming materially caste conscious, but also not throwing out the idea of qualifications and instituting a social structure for the sake of helping Krishna consciousness. So it's complex and it's difficult, and that balancing of ideas needs to be there. But yeah, as far as Vyasadeva, I can't read his mind, but the message is there nonetheless. Is that okay?
Thank you for that answer.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Okay, it's late. It's after 9 o'clock. I deeply appreciate everyone's kind attention. I hope everything's going well for you in Philly. I hope the weather is moderating there for all of you and everything is going well. I trust you had an ecstatic Gorpanim festival. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Vanchakal.
Vanchakalkalpasya kripasindhabhyevacha
Patitanam
patitanam
Bhavanebhyo
pavanebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo
Namo
namo
Namaha.
namaha.